Shakespeare's comedies are generally less well known than his cripplingly depressing tragedies, but the key exception to this principle is also one of Shakespeare's best plays, with a colorful, distinctive cast and a beautiful integration of Celtic folklore with classical mythology. I refer, of course, to A Midsummer Night's Dream. In this classical Greek rom-com, we are exposed to two very different worlds and the hijinks that ensue when the fairy denizens of the forest try to play matchmaker with the star-crossed love quadrangle of Athens. There's romance, fairies, blatant fanservice, creepy manipulation, personas, and an ending that's like 50% happy and 50% viscerally unsettling. And so, without further ado, I present to you Shakespeare's classic comedy, A Midsummer Night's Dream. The story takes place in Athens, but for some reason the movie versions never use that setting. Whatever. The first characters we encounter are Theseus and Hippolyta, who are due to be married. Theseus, the Duke of Athens, apologizes to Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons, no, not those Amazons, for wooing her with his sword, and says that their wedding will be super awesome. Hippolyta seems somewhat less thrilled to get hitched. So now we meet the four main characters. There are these two dudes, Demetrius and Lysander, and these two girls, Hermia and Helena. Hermia and Lysander are in love. Demetrius is in love with Hermia. Helena is in love with Demetrius. Hermia's father wants Hermia and Demetrius to marry. Got it? Great. Theseus tells Hermia to marry Demetrius or die because Athens was a really progressive society. But instead, Hermia and Lysander resolve to flee into the magic fairy woods because clearly that's the superior alternative. Hermia tells Helena that she can totally have Demetrius, but Helena decides to tell Demetrius about their plan instead in a misguided effort to prove to Demetrius how she's really the one for him. Instead of responding by fainting into her arms and declaring his undying love for her, Demetrius instead charges off into the woods on his bicycle? In order to chase down Hermia and force her to return to Athens. Over to still more main characters. We meet the Rude Mechanicals, a group of roughshod dudes who want to put on a play to honor Theseus and Hippolyta's marriage. The only important one of these guys is Bottom, so you can just ignore the other ones. And finally, rounding out the cast, we meet the Fairy Court. Okay, so before we continue, this requires a little bit of clarification. The modern view of a fairy probably looks something like this. Tiny, adorable, generally friendly, and surrounded by a comforting haze of glitter. That's not right, I hear you cry?
You're wrong.
No. These Shakespearean fairies are the old kind. See, way back in the old days, fairies were seriously bad news. Actually, they were pretty much the definition of bad news. They were the favorite superstition-rooted explanation for everything that went wrong in someone's life. They were the things that led travelers astray, seduced wives and husbands, stole children and replaced them with fairy babies that would never grow up. And generally they wreaked havoc among unsuspecting humans. These were the monsters in the dark. These were the boogeymen that you warded off with cold iron and locked doors. And with that in mind, we meet the court of Oberon, happily getting drunk off their collective asses. Here's where we're introduced to the last of the main characters, Puck, the fairy trickster. No, not that one. Not that one either. Puck is Oberon's BFF, doing the majority of his dirty work. Puck's a bit nervous, though, since Oberon and Titania, the king and queen of fairy respectively, are currently in the middle of an argument over who gets the most recent baby kidnapping victim. Titania was good friends with the kid's mother, who died in childbirth, and out of respect for her dead friend, Titania wants to raise the boy herself. Oberon, meanwhile, wants a new servant. So clearly this is an argument of equal standing and validity of points. So Oberon decides that a wacky revenge scheme is the way to go, and orders Puck to find him a magic love flower. The plan is to entrance Titania with a love potion, so that she'll fall in love with the next ugly and/or ridiculous creature she sees. Oberon figures that while she's entranced, he'll trick her into giving him the boy, and then he'll release her from the spell. Real simple stuff. But at that very moment, Helena and Demetrius come crashing through the undergrowth on their bicycles? Demetrius tries to escape Helena while she demands that he, treat her as a spaniel. Ugh. Upon seeing Helena's display of terrifying stalker tendencies, Oberon decides that she needs help, but rather than the psychiatric help that we were all thinking, he decides that Demetrius should reciprocate Helena's love. So he also tells Puck to go and find the Athenian guy and give him the love potion too. However, what Oberon doesn't realize is that there are, in fact, two lovelorn Athenian dudes in his woods. Predictably enough, Puck instead stumbles across Hermia and Lysander sleeping in the woods and gives Lysander the love juice instead of Demetrius, who is still trying to convince Helena to leave him alone. Demetrius has managed to shake Helena's pursuit, but Helena bumps into Lysander, who wakes up and promptly falls in love with her. Helena is severely weirded out by this sudden change of heart and flees into the woods, where Lysander hops onto his trusty bicycle and pedals furiously after her. Okay, seriously. I know this is a little point, but what's with all the frickin' bikes? Is this some kind of secret triathlon advertisement and no one told me? Because seriously, I'm pretty sure that's not there in the original text. I've checked. Anyway, a very confused Hermia wakes up all alone in the woods. Puck continues on through the woods and finds the Rude Mechanicals, where he decides on a whim to cast an illusion on Bottom that'll make him look as though he has an ass's head. You see, it's a pun, because Bottom, ass. So the Mechanicals freak out and run away, and the love-struck Titania is awakened by the sound of Bottom's melodious singing. Titania is so in love with Bottom that she decides that he'll stay with her in the forest forever, and as a special favor, she'll also free him of his mortality, which, Well, honestly, sounds like a pretty sweet deal, but doesn't detract from the fact that 2 out of 3 of the female leads radiate sheer essence of overly attached girlfriend. So Puck goes back to report to Oberon when conveniently Hermia and Demetrius come crashing through the woods again on their bicycles. What is even going on here? So Oberon notices that Demetrius seems distinctly unmagicked and Puck realizes that he enchanted the wrong guy. Hermia storms off into the woods again and Demetrius decides to take a nap, since following Hermia would probably result in personal injury. Oberon realizes that Puck has ruined everything, and orders him to go fix it by bringing Helena to the sleeping Demetrius so that he can force him to fall in love with her. Given Puck's current success rate at carrying out orders without mistakes, I'm sure this will work out fine. Titania and Bottom are getting married, or something. Let's just gloss over this part. So now reaching lover critical mass in the woods, Helena and Lysander stumble upon the sleeping Demetrius, who promptly wakes up and declares his undying love for Helena. Helena at this point is convinced that they're playing a cruel joke on her, and she flees on her bicycle. And the 2 dudes pursue her. And here's where Hermia finally chooses to join the fray, demanding that Lysander explain why he left her all alone in the woods. And Lysander's all like, "It's 'cause I hate you." And she's like, no you don't." And he's like, "Oh, I totally do." And poor confused Helena decides that Hermia must also be in on the joke. So they have an actually tragic and heartrending argument where Helena asks why Hermia has forgotten their friendship, and Hermia, completely baffled by what's going on, can't give her an answer. Hermia decides that Helena somehow stole her boy toy, and their tragic philosophical argument turns into a mud-flinging argument about whether or not Helena used her height to seduce Lysander. Mud-fight transition. What, you thought I was joking about the mud-flinging part? Helena promptly forgets that she thinks the boys are playing a trick on her and demands that they pull Hermia off of her. God, double standard much? So Demetrius and Lysander march off to duel for Helena's affection, while Helena runs for her life away from the enraged Hermia. So, Oberon is unsurprisingly miffed at Puck's amazing ability to ruin everything, and orders him to fix everything for real this time by making it too foggy for the men to find each other and then removing the love spell from Lysander. Lysander. This guy. Not this guy. This guy. Not this guy. This guy! Then Oberon will go and get that boy from Titania and remove the love spell from her, too, and then everything will be fixed forever. Puck invokes his slapstick powers of wacky hijinks to distract the men and they both fall asleep. Hermia and Helena finally exhaust their self-pity supplies and fall asleep, too. And then Puck fixed everything. And then Oberon fixed everything, too. And then all these fairies fixed some bikes for some reason. And then Demetrius was allowed to marry Helena, so Lysander was allowed to marry Hermia. And then Bottom woke up confused in a strange location with a few fuzzy memories of the previous night. And then the mechanicals put on the play and it was hilariously bad. And then everyone had a happy ending and it was totally adorable. The end.
Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride it where I like. You say black, I say white. You say bar, I say bite. You say shark, I say him. And Jaws was never my scene, and I don't like Star Wars. You say Rose, I say Royce. You say God, give me a choice. You say Lord, I say Christ. I don't believe in Peter Pan, Frankenstein, or Superman. All I wanna do is bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride